everyone, welcome to New Bear. I'm Monique and I have a special one for you today. I'm sharing a video which has been on my to-do list for quite some time. Judith Connors reached out to me to share some photos of a stunning necklace that she had made. I'd like to thank Judith as she's kindly allowing me to share her beaded flower technique with you today. To work the flower, you're going to need an empty shuttle, a crochet hook, a stitch marker or a safety pin. You'll need size 20 thread, an 8mm bead and 36 seed beads, or if you're using Mill Hill beads, you'll need 48. Let's have a quick look at beads before we start working the flower.
Now the world of beads is huge. We are not going down that rabbit hole today, but I thought it could be helpful, especially for anyone who isn't familiar with beads, if we did just a really broad overview on the sizing of beads. Beads like wooden beads, pearls, crystals, Swarovski, these are all known as standard beads and are measured in millimeters. Now if you're like me, you have a box of beads which you've had forever with half the labels missing, or the beads have come off their string and are just free floating around in the bottom of your beading box. To work out the size of your non-labeled bead, grab a metric ruler, run some thread through your bead. We're going to line the whole of the bead up with one of the centimetre hatch marks on our ruler. We're measuring from one hole across to the other. The length across the bead's hole, the diameter of the bead, is the size of the bead. So an 8mm bead, which is the size we need for our flower, has a central hole measuring 8mm in length. Now not all beads are round, but regardless of the bead's shape, the length of the hole is the size of the bead. Seed beads are measured with a scale known as the aught size, which is written like this, 15/0. Or it might have a degree symbol instead of the naught. This is telling us that 15 beads lined up side by side with their holes facing up equals an inch, or it should equal an inch. Seed beads don't necessarily size up according to their aught number. As you can see, we have a size 12 here. We're over our inch. Our size 15 is pretty much spot on. There can be variations between manufacturers, which is something to be aware of, especially if you need exact measurements for your project. Seed beads are sized the same way our tatting thread is sized, in that the larger the number, the smaller our bead. Rightio, we are still talking bead sizes for a minute, but now we're looking at beads for our flower. Our central bead needs to be size 8. This is so our stitch count fits around the circumference of the bead. The size for our small beads isn't specified because there are so many possibilities that we could use. So instead of giving a specific size, the instructions tell us that our beads need to fill a 6mm picot. As I mentioned before, seed beads are sized the same way our tatting thread is sized. It would require more size 15 beads to fill the picot because they're smaller than it would if I were to use slightly larger size 12. So you can use whatever size you like, but the amount of beads needed to fill our picot will vary depending on the size of the beads we use. Before you start working your flower, I'd suggest loading a few beads onto your thread, measure out a 6mm picot and see how many beads you need to fill that picot. Just be sure to have an even number of beads. It must be divisible by 2. We're joining to the top of this picot later on. We don't want 3 beads on one side and 2 on the other. We're going to have 6 picots, so take your number and multiply it by 6. That will give you the total number of beads you need for the flower. Before we start tatting, we need to load the seed beads onto our ball thread. I'll include a link for a video which shows different ways we can do this for anyone who'd like some help with it. We need to work with continuous thread. So with your beads loaded on your ball thread, measure off 40 centimetres and wind your shuttle. So we have our 40 centimetres our beads and our ball thread. Divide your beads in half. The second lot of beads gets pushed back a bit. The first lot is placed over the back of our hand as we set up for a chain, but we're not making a chain. Push the beads to the back of your hand. We are making a central mock ring. Take your shuttle thread, loop it around your ring finger and back into the pinch. We just need a loop here. You don't have to loop the thread around your finger, but that's how I prefer to do it. The flower is worked completely from the right side. At no point do we reverse our work. The first half of our flower is written like this. The ×2 is telling us to work the instructions inside the brackets twice. Then we continue on and work the instructions outside the brackets. I'm going to refer to the stitch count needed to complete each beaded picot as a set. For our first set, we are chaining 2. Slide your beads up. We have a count of 2. As we make the first double stitch, we're also making our beaded picot. Work the second half to secure the beaded picot. Now we work the second double stitch, followed by a very small picot. After the small picot, we begin our second set. Work 2 double stitches, this forms the small picot we need to complete the first set, or giving us the first 2 stitches for the second set. Bring up the next lot of beads, work 2, forming the beaded picot. And we're ready for our small picot again. We work the next 2 double stitches to start the third set, creating the small picot that we need to complete the second set. Check that your core thread slides. Be careful not to pull it so far that you lose your loop. Bring your beads up. Work 2 double stitches. This is what you should have so far. Holding on to your stitches, we're going to pull on the bottom loop to open that up a little bit. Now we need our stitch marker and our bead. Using a crochet hook, go down through your 8mm bead. Make sure your loop isn't twisted. Catch the loop with your hook and push your bead up. Place your safety pin between your first lot of stitches and your bead. The safety pin prevents our stitches being pulled into the hole of the bead while we work. It also gives us a joining position for later. So again, making sure your loop's not twisted. we're going to pass our shuttle through our loop. Pull on your shuttle thread to close that loop. Your chain will wrap around the bead. The second half of our flower is written like this. We're making a small picot to complete the third set, working the bracketed instructions twice, then continuing with the instructions outside of the brackets. So complete the third set by working a very small picot. Again, we finish one set by starting the next. Our fourth set has 2 double stitches. This is our small picot for the third set and our 2 double stitches for the fourth set. Bring your beads up. I forgot to load them onto my hand when I set up my chain. We are making a beaded picot and 2. Our small picot is created as we start our 5th set with 2. Beaded picot. And 2. A small picot is created as we start the 6th set with a count of 2. Slide the beads up and complete the 6th set with 1 double stitch. We only have 1 double stitch here because when we bring that around to join back to the start, our other double stitch is already there. So gently pull on your shuttle thread to tension the chain, making it wrap snugly around the bead. Swap your stitch marker for a crochet hook. So remove your safety pin or your stitch marker. Run your crochet hook through the hole. And we're going to lock join to the base of the bead. Staying on the right side of our work, we're setting our hand up for a chain and working a count of 8. Lock join to the top of the first bead, first beaded picot I should say, making sure your beads are split evenly on either side. Continuing with another count of 8. Lock join to the small picot between the 2 beaded picots. We're going to continue with another round of 8. We then lock join to the beaded picot, chain 8, lock join to the small picot, and so on. Cutting our threads, leave yourself a decent tail. Pass your core thread through to the back. We're going to tie off with a square knot and get rid of our tails.
And that's it. I hope you enjoyed making Judith's beaded flower with me today. I look forward to seeing your bead and thread combinations. See you next time.